Hi everybody. Get started in just a second. I'll wait for some people to hop on here. Anybody who's watching this back, today's live will be about the evolution of paranormal phenomena. And go ahead and join me. Feel free to share this video. My hair is an absolute wreck and I'm sorry. Hi everybody. Hey Bobby Sue. How are you? It's really hot in my sunroom right now. I just spent the last like 10 minutes looking for my charger cord. Hey JC. Just waiting for everybody to get on. Hi Julie. Today's live is not going to be long because I feel like these lives, when they're longer, they get boring. So I kind of want to jump to the topics. I'm good. I'm really good. And I'll just wait for a couple people to hop on. Right now I got 5 watching. Today's live again is about the evolution of paranormal phenomena. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Wow, our numbers just jumped. Hey Sharon. So hopefully we don't get any thunderstorms, and hopefully my internet doesn't go out. Antietam broadband is not very reliable these days. But anyways, so today's topic is the evolution of paranormal phenomena, and really talking about this subject, you really have to kind of think about the variables of a paranormal, a location that has paranormal activity. Every time I investigate, I like to keep track of all the variables that I can. Anything that is, within our scope of keeping track of. I'm not going to go into more technical aspects, but there's a lot of things that can kind of change the environment. Hey Ed, of paranormal phenomena. Things like the living. So, going to the basics of keeping track of things like this. Who is on your investigation? Everybody is different, so everybody sees things differently, everybody experiences things differently, everybody has different energy. So, for example, I'm more low-key, down to earth, whereas my husband is more high-strung and is kind of crazy. So having the different types of energy in a location can really affect the type of activity. So again, it could also impact the type of spirits that you contact. And again, guys that are just joining me, hey Stephen, hey Diane, I'm talking about the evolution of paranormal phenomena, and one of the things that you really have to start thinking about is all the different variables in a location before you think about how does it change and why does it change. I asked the question last week when I didn't do my live what everybody thought, and most people said yes, paranormal activity evolves, but we want to know why, we want to know how. So this is kind of like a guide for anybody who's doing paranormal investigation, things to look for, things to keep track of if you do long-term studies in a location. But we were talking about the different variables of an investigation or a location. Jeremy's crazy. He is crazy. Thank goodness he's not here when I do these lives. It'd be insane. But the variables could be the people that are on an investigation. Everybody has different personalities. Everybody has different energy. So that could impact the investigation. And we talk a lot on our page about making sure when you go investigate, hey Chris, hey Michael, making sure that you have, a positive attitude. You're not kind of negative or being too rude when you're investigating, because if you bring that kind of attitude, then that's probably the spirits that you're going to contact, or you just might draw them in. So I was saying, different people, different personalities, different types of energy, different types of emotions can all impact. So these are variables that, with the evolution of paranormal activity, if it's a person living in a location or people coming and going, this could change. You know, if you have a rental and constant change in people in the environment, this could really impact what kind of paranormal activity you have. The weather, everybody seems to think the weather could have an impact on paranormal activity. I'll be honest, I've kept track of the weather for, I say probably since 2009 in every location that I've been to. And we try to show, you know, was it active when it was raining? Was it active when it was storming? Was it active when it was clear outside? I definitely would say that when it rains, when there's more moisture in the air, there's a lot more activity. I don't necessarily think thunderstorms impact it, but I do think moisture does. Why? I have no idea. Other variables could be things that we ask. Hey, John, things that we ask when we go into a location. You know, the variables are construction. Is the family having stressors? So again, all of these things could impact the evolution of the phenomena going in a location. Furniture and objects. You know, a lot of people say, well, I have a brand new house. Do you collect antiques? Do you like old things? These items could have something that comes in with them. So going back again and linking this to our topic today, just remember that everything that you do, everything, you know, all your emotions, all of your possessions, this all could impact what kind of phenomena you have. The moon. Everybody always seems to think the moon, hey Mary, impacts paranormal activity. I don't know. We just went to Trans-Allegheny this past weekend and it was a full moon. And I've been to Trans-Allegheny quite a few times. And I would have to say that it wasn't the most active time. It wasn't like it wasn't active, but I don't feel that it was any more or any less than the average. So I don't feel that the full moon impacted the actual activity that night. I've actually kept track of moon phases for all of our investigations. That really doesn't seem to make a difference. I'll move into the next kind of variable. Time of year, the date. A lot of people say, well, if it's on a specific date, it's going to be a residual haunt. I don't necessarily feel that if something actually is exhibiting, you know, some sort of paranormal phenomena, that it's specifically residual on a specific date. I think things just, if that's the date they want to come around, that's the date they come around. And, you know, without getting too deep into that subject, because it's like a whole other subject, talking about residual hauntings, you know, this is one of the most interesting aspects of evolution of the paranormal. I've been in locations where other people have stated that they think it's a residual haunt. I feel that sometimes it's too easy of a label to put on something when you haven't done enough research. And when I say research, I mean like actual investigating and really trying to do experiments to try to see what kind of activity is happening. Some spirits just don't want to talk to you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not intelligent. It just means that it's not going to interact in any way. It's like we need to have another whole category for intelligent spirits that just are antisocial. And going through the time thing again, does paranormal activity fade over time? Do they use up their energy stores and, you know, eventually just blow away? Do they just kind of become dormant until something, you know, pulls them back out? Hello, Deborah. These are the questions we all want to, you know, ask and try to get answers for. Why do they disappear after a while? Why is it, you know, in some locations, a good example is the Masonic Temple. We investigated the Masonic Temple in Hagerstown, Maryland from 2011 to 2016. So in 5 years, we had quite a few investigations, and some formal, some informal. But I always tried to keep track as much as I could of all these different variables. The spirits that we spoke with when we first went and investigated were definitely individuals that were attached to the Masonic temple. They were individuals that were part of the order, you know. Oh, and over time, we stopped getting any type of communication. So our question is, did they just decide that they'd said enough? Could they not say anymore? Did they move on? Now, as most of you know, they sold the Masonic Temple in downtown Hagerstown. So it is now owned by a development company, and other things are going to be put in there. But when they started talking and discussing selling this building, did the spirits decide to move on? We don't know, you know, and we can't get in there any longer, so we can't really ask the questions any longer. We never really received responses when we were asked. Yeah, Ed. So do I. So do I. The Masonic Temple, we had a bathroom there, wouldn't let me out of the bathroom stall. Yeah, you know, that happened to a lot of people, Julie. The Masonic Temple was a really good location, but I'll be honest, it really, the activity just totally dissipated. And at times when we went, no pun intended, it just was dead. And the activity just wasn't there any longer. So it was almost as if the spirits had just moved on or just did not feel like communicating any longer. Hey, Chad. So that kind of all brings like everything that I'm discussing, you know, up. It's not always residual. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you. Sometimes they move on. But why do they move on? Why did they move on? Because the building's purpose was finished and they no longer needed to keep an eye on it. These are things that we want to know. I definitely feel that there is an they got bored. Yeah, so did we at times. Do they leave? You know, some of these spirits, are they capable? And, you know, I know Sharon probably would chime in with this. Are they capable after they're not really attached to the building? You know, is their purpose done and do they just go ahead and move on? Or is there a point in time where, you know, they're done with the building, but they move on to other areas? You know, they're somewhere else, or with family, or in another building, or attached to an object, maybe. Maybe even the Masons took them with them. We don't know. I know where they're at now. It's in a much smaller location, but these are questions that I would love to ask them. And I actually think I might have to ask one of the guys that's, he follows us here on the Facebook page. So I'll have to see if they've had anything happen in there. So, you know, it's a good question to pose is, you know, do they leave once their purpose is fulfilled? Do they move on? Or do they just move to a different place? Exactly. There's so many things, and this is one of the hard parts. You know, we try as much as we can to do research and really find answers, but in the end, we can't, if they don't want to answer, we can't really give the answer, and we can't, you know, talk for them necessarily because we don't know. And at times I feel like, you know, we use all this different type of equipment, and because we don't really know if they're just playing with it or testing it out, if the answers that we're getting are legitimate or not. So, hey, Bridget. It's definitely, it's a very confusing hobby, I would have to say. Moving on to other types of, you know, evolution that we may see, more spirits. Do some locations, because they're investigated repeatedly, do we call to these other spirits in locations nearby and draw them into them? Do we have spirits that are attached to us and, you know, are basically free to roam? Do we take them in places and they think, oh, hey, this is a nice place to live, I'm going to stay here for a while? Hey, Tom. I just, you know, there's lots of things that could potentially change over time. So many things, so many variables. Shifts in energy. Now, this is something that I don't really, I mean, I do a lot of spiritual stuff, but shifts in energy, like, you know, when Mercury goes retrograde, or Jupiter or Pluto or whatever planet decides it's going to go backwards. Shifts in energy like that, does that actually change paranormal activity? And this is something that, you know, maybe we need to actually start making note of when we investigate. I do know it makes people exhibit crazy behaviors. Now, I don't know if that's just like a placebo thing, you know, where people are just acting crazy because somebody said it's Mercury retrograde. And if you feel like bad things are going to happen to you, is that a law of attraction simply because you know it's retrograde? I don't know. But it's another thing to think about, the evolution of the activity. Is it energy shifts that have nothing to do with human beings? All these things, you know, I'd love people to comment and kind of, you know, throw some input in there and ask questions. I wasn't going to do this one very long tonight, 7:17. I'll definitely do it longer, but go ahead and post up questions. I do want to go over some of the locations that we've done through the years and we've done repeatedly and kind of talk about each one. Full moons and thunderstorms. Well, I just talked about those a little bit, Bridget. We went to Trans-Allegheny last weekend. Not last weekend, weekend before. I'm like still on that weekend before because I haven't gotten enough sleep. We had a full moon when we went to Trans-Allegheny, and you know, we've had other full moons when we went there, and I don't feel that the activity was any more or any less than it usually is. I wouldn't say that it was extremely active. We had things happen and we had communication, but it didn't seem to increase it beyond, you know, any type of average. And anybody who knows Trans-Allegheny, you'll know that pretty much every time you go, you'll probably communicate or experience something with some, you know, some sort of thing would happen. But it didn't seem to impact us much. Thunderstorms, I definitely feel that rain does impact because I keep track of whether it's clear, if it's raining, snowing. I feel that moisture in the air does increase paranormal activity. So these, all you real science buffs, think about why that possibly could be, that all moisture impacts it. I haven't noticed anything else like wind speed or not humidity, pressure or anything really making an impact. But I recommend to anybody that does investigations repeatedly at the same locations, or just even doing investigations like a lot. Keep track of all these things. Keep track of the moon phase. Keep track of the weather. Keep track of who you have on the investigation. Was it active? Was it not active? And come up with your own foundation of trying to determine that. To me, I feel a really good investigation is when you've experienced something personally and you've had interaction with spirits, some sort of communication that you've gotten, you know, maybe names or information. Julie, I think spirits are everywhere, going on living their life as they did in the physical, but on the spiritual plane. It's definitely lots of thumbs up with that. I agree. I definitely feel like a lot of them are, however, confused and lost in a way. I know a lot of the ones that I have pop up here, they just don't seem to know where they are at or why they're here. And they seem sad in a lot of cases. Static electricity increases energy. I definitely agree with that. I just don't know that it technically affects solar weather. Yes, Steve Hall, excellent. Yes, that was something that I wanted to add. Solar flares, very interesting enough. The last time we were given information about solar flares, we had hey Jonathan, I have noticed changes in the local static electricity levels as an indicator of EVPs going on. Moisture impacts that for sure, positive or negative. Okay. I will have to, you know, we used to use static detectors years ago and they didn't work. Now I don't know if that was I don't know if that was just because it was, you know, equipment malfunction, but it's definitely something that I would like to pursue. You know, detecting static electricity is easy enough to test out. So Jonathan, I think that's definitely, you live in the desert, yeah. And, one of the things that Chris said, and I've lost my train of thought, so hopefully I'll circle back around, but Chris says, a thought today, do ghosts have jobs? I'm sure that they do, Chris. Is it Sedona, the one that everybody talks about having, all the thunderstorms and the stone that's underneath of the ground retains all that static electricity, so that is what makes it more active. I can't remember if that's the town or not. Somebody I'm sure knows it, because I live on the right coast, not the left coast. So, okay, Julie says yes. But all of this stuff could potentially make paranormal activity change in some way. So I'm going to go through the locations. The Masonic Temple we just talked about. It started out very active. We would have communication every time we went, and we would investigate several times. I'd say per quarter. It wasn't like we investigated every month, but maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And we did that for 5 years. Now, the last year that we did it, we only did it once, and there were some years in that time frame that maybe we only did it once or twice. But still, doing all those investigations and even spreading them out, because I feel that sometimes if you leave it alone for a little bit, they're like, where have you been? And they really want to talk to you because they haven't had anybody to talk to. The Masonic Temple actually had other investigators in the building, and I can't speak for that variable, but I do not feel that the spirits enjoyed the type of investigation practices that were being done. So just remember, as an investigator, you really have to try to connect to the location. You have to be able to have some sort of connection there. And for me, it's always history. The history of the building really connected me to that building. And after a while, yes, exactly. And that's what I was talking about, Ed. Everybody is different. The way you investigate is different. The way you present yourself. Yeah, we won't talk about that. So it's really going to make an impact on a location. And I really feel with the Masonic Temple, it did. Because over time, those spirits just didn't communicate at all. Now, I don't know if it was because of them. If they had moved on, I'm not sure. But I definitely feel the activity had completely decreased. And they just didn't communicate anymore. Oddfellows. From 2014 to now, I'm actually now an Oddfellow, which is very fitting. I feel like Oddfellows in the beginning, we were thinking that it wouldn't be a good location to do repeatedly because we didn't have any interaction. And I'll be honest, I think I've only gotten one EVP in all these years that we've investigated there that even made any type of sense. Now, most of the EVPs that I've gotten were ones that I wouldn't share publicly because, to me, if you can't share something that you don't have to use who wants to put in earbuds to listen to an EVP? Not everybody has them. Not everybody uses them. So I like to share ones that without a doubt you can listen to it and you can tell it's an EVP. So we go for Class A's. So I'm not going to share even, ones that are questionable to me. So, and I have really good hearing. Just ask Jeremy. Hey, Phil. Funnily enough. So Oddfellows now is an incredible location. The evolution of the activity there went from not having very much to we can communicate with a lot of spirits. And over time, more and more spirits come out. And now it's in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So if anybody knows Harpers Ferry, it's got a lot of activity in it. So if we're actually communicating with things that we've pulled from the area around, we don't know. But there's been tons, thousands of people that have been through that building, have been in that area, who maybe have a message that they want to impart. So over time, that has really the activity has increased a lot. Now, I don't know if the Oddfellows have noticed it, but being there and being there more often, in my case, we'll be upstairs and doing, just talking, and I can hear things moving around in the antechamber outside of the meeting room. So they didn't do that before, I'll be honest. So it really, definitely, us investigating more often, they communicate more often, and it kind of does depend on who goes in there, because not everybody, men especially, don't get as much as women do at Oddfellows. I don't know why the spirits there like women more. I just know that the female, the young girl that we have in that building, definitely does not trust men, so she wouldn't even attempt to communicate with men, really. Moving on to the next one, the mill. Glade Valley Mill is in Woodsboro, Maryland. It was a flour mill originally, and then it was a feed mill, like animal feed. We investigated it for the first time in 2014, and we've investigated repeatedly all these years until now, and we'll still be investigating this one. Jeremy's brother actually owns it, and we can go in pretty much anytime we really want. The activity there has also changed a little bit. The first time we investigated, I'd say we mostly just, that was back when we were using the flashlight method a lot, and that was what we were mostly getting. But over time, and we started seeing shadow figures, hearing footsteps, faucets turning on. Where at, Phil? Is it in the bathroom or in the kitchen? That's interesting. Phil is also an Oddfellow. He's the one that brought us into Oddfellows, so it's very interesting. But the Glade Valley Mill is a very large building. It still has a lot of the original equipment in it for making feed and stuff. The grain bins are still in there, and they go from the second floor all the way to the fourth floor, which takes up a lot of space in the building. So it may be a very large building, but it doesn't have, like, you can't go through the entire floor on every floor. The second floor, there's like an open space and then a room off to the left. Third floor is the same way. The fourth floor, however, has an open room at the top of the stairs, a room on the left, and then you can walk all the way around the grain bins to the front. One time we were investigating, and bathroom, and Jeremy and I were trying to find a sound, and this is probably one of the first times we've ever had any type of real visual and audible experience. We kept hearing this noise. We go all the way to the fourth floor, and we see what looks like a shadow kind of hunched down, and it like make a loud bang and shot off towards the front of the building. So it startled us a little bit, because honestly, they used to have animals in there, rogue animals. So, our first instinct is like, is there an animal in here? Well, I'd have to say that the shadow was large enough that it would have been like a bear. It was pretty big, so I don't even know why we thought that, but I doubt a bear could get up there. Anyways, we had the entire team upstairs trying to see if it was an animal. Definitely, if you're a paranormal investigator or a ghost hunter, you've got to check it out to make sure that it isn't something that you can explain. This was a very weird experience. We could not find anything in that upstairs, and according to the owner, there are no animals in there. He keeps a pretty tight ship. Talk with Kathy about it. Okay, I will. I definitely will. So the Glade Valley Mill is another one. I don't know if you can see a trend here, but we start investigating, and the more we investigate, the longer time we investigate, the more we get. So again, talking about investigators that go into a location once and immediately say, well, we didn't get anything, so it's got to be residual. You have to investigate a lot more than that to be able to make any type of determination. Spirits sometimes can't communicate with equipment, don't want to communicate with you. Switch off the investigators. I mean, so much can change. So, we're talking about evolution. Is there actually an evolution, or does it just get more familiar with you? Trans-Allegheny is another one. That was supposed to be what I was talking about first. We went there probably the early days of Trans-Allegheny doing public ghost hunts, and we did, we helped guide the ghost hunts in the outer buildings. We never really guided inside, but we did spotting and things like that, keeping people organized with tours. So we spent a lot of time in the building, and not just, you know, with groups of people. We would have to walk the halls by ourselves. So we experience stuff that not everybody gets to experience. When you're with a group of 15 people, it's kind of hard to say, oh, was that paranormal, or was that person up there, you know, making sounds. When you're by yourself in that building and you're walking through a hallway, it's really kind of hard to say it was somebody else when there's nobody in there and you're hearing footsteps walk behind you and stop when you stop. I will say that we didn't interact with the same people that we used to at Trans-Allegheny. Now, obviously, there's probably thousands of spirits in that building, so you're probably going to come across different ones all the time, especially some kind of have a hierarchy. I don't know if anybody else who investigates notices this. Spirits have almost like a hierarchy. There's always somebody that's a dominant spirit, and some other spirits can't even communicate because this dominant one won't let them. It's something to think about in these places, like if some have moved on or somebody has done something to bring another dominant spirit in. I don't know. But Trans-Allegheny, it kind of, for me, it changed because I don't feel that I communicated with the same people, and I don't feel that it was as active as it used to be. Now, is it possible that locations can be just worn out? Do spirits just say, no more, I've had enough? It's a good question. The last one I want to talk about is the warehouse. We're supposed to do the warehouse next month. I don't know that activity in that location has changed at all. I feel that it's pretty much been the same. We did our first one in 2017. And let's see, the last one I think was in November of last year. I don't feel that one has changed, but I felt like I needed to add it into the equation because we have done it for a few years. It's still used as the same, you know, it's used as a manufacturing. We call it a warehouse because it's a really big building. Yeah, worn out. The temple was worn out. But I don't feel that over the, how many years is that? 2 years. Over the 2 years that we've investigated there, I don't feel that it's changed at all. I will also say that we have not, it's a very large building, so we haven't even like begin to touch all the areas in the building. So it's something to think about. But you know, if you guys have any experiments or anything that you would suggest for a long-term research location, feel free to go ahead and post it in the comments. I'm actually getting ready to do a project that's not APS related. I've been invited to be part of I can't really say what it is because I'm not supposed to, so just part of a project in West Virginia, and I'm really excited about it because it's a little out of my comfort zone, and I think I need that. And you know, they are looking for different types of experiments to do, something new and interesting. One of the subjects that they were talking about was the, oh gosh, what is that word? The thing with a mirror. I can't remember what it's called. Using a mirror, like how energy gets stored in a mirror. But I see everybody doing this Estes method and things like that, and it really makes me wonder sometimes about these methods. Is it all part of psychology? Is it a trick of the mind? But I really would love to hear what you guys have to say about everything that I've talked about tonight. I just start running on and just talk and talk and talk. So feel free to post questions or comments. And if you have topic suggestions, go ahead and throw them up in there in the comment section too. Or scrying. Okay. There's another name for it though, Tom. It starts with a P, I want to say. I can't remember. But anyways, I want to say Zach Bagans talked about it on one of his investigations that he did. I can't remember for the life of me. God, it sucks to get old. anyways, that was the discussion of the evolution of paranormal activity. I love talking to people that have done long-term research in other locations. I've never been one to really like to go to like a million different places to investigate. I really like doing the same ones, seeing what happens, and really getting, you know, information, because without that, what do we really have? To me as a paranormal investigator, I've always wanted to do the research and you know, ask the questions, not necessarily just throw another location under my belt. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm gonna leave this here for now. And anybody who's watching this back, go ahead and ask questions. I'll try to answer them as best as I can later on. And I'm gonna leave it alone at that. I think next week I may talk about, what was it? Somebody had suggested something to me. Anybody have any ideas? I can't remember. Can't remember. It's actually not as easy as you think to try to come up with ideas for doing lives, because there's so many things that you could talk about. I may revisit hazards and safety for paranormal investigations, because I think a lot of people aren't safe. Anyways, I will leave it at that, and I guess I will see you guys next week. I'm Rebecca Boyer. I am the co-founder of Antietam Paranormal Society, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.